Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to gently unpack the quiet early signs of toxic dynamics before you get deeply entangled in them. Now, if you clicked on this, you might be feeling a little sense of doubt in a current relationship, or maybe you're just trying to make sense of a past one. As we go through this, I really want you to step into the role of an observer of your own life. We aren't looking for those giant flashing red lights today. Instead, we're looking at the subtle architecture, that nearly invisible foundation that manipulative people build before you even realize you're trapped.
This quote right here really gets to the heart of the whole thing. Nobody warns you about the moment it starts, because, well, there's no alarm bell. Instead, you're sitting across from someone, you feel that electricity, and you just want so badly for it to be real that you actually stop asking the critical questions. And honestly, that's the trap. The trap isn't even the manipulation itself, it's the profound hope that comes right before it. Manipulative people initially look exactly like everything you've ever wanted, and that intense hope can so easily overrule your gut intuition.
Now, before we go literally any further, I need you to give yourself some grace. If you've been in a toxic relationship and you catch yourself thinking, man, how did I not see it? Please take a deep breath and just let that judgment go. Toxic people don't introduce themselves by waving giant red flags. The entire point of their early behavior is to perfectly mirror your deepest desires. So if you missed these signs in the past, forgive yourself. You were just operating on hope.
All right, let's get right into Section 1, Spotting Transactional Behavior. Let's dive right into our diagnostic phase. I want you to ask yourself this. How do they treat people who can't do absolutely anything for them? Look, when someone's pursuing you, of course they're warm and attentive. You have something they want. So how they treat you in those first couple of months actually tells you almost nothing about their true character. Instead, look at the waiter who got the order wrong. Pay attention to how they talk about a slightly annoying coworker or just a random stranger on the road.
And this perfectly illustrates the divide. A toxic person is, at their core, fundamentally transactional. They sort literally everyone into two buckets: people who are useful and people who aren't. A healthy person, on the other hand, just has a baseline of patience and respect for everyone, totally regardless of their utility. If you watch really closely early on, you're going to see how they sort people. And you need to understand this. One day, when you inevitably stop giving them exactly what they need, you're going to get sorted too.
Okay, moving on to our next subtle sign. Do their stories quietly shift? And I'm not talking about huge, totally obvious lies here. I'm asking you to notice if their version of reality just feels a little too fluid, or maybe just a bit too convenient for whatever argument they're currently trying to win. Just think about how a timeline like this plays out. In week 1, maybe their ex was quote-unquote crazy. But by week 3, when it suddenly serves a completely different narrative purpose, oh, well, the ex was actually fine. Now, sure, people misremember things all the time, but manipulative people actually experience the world as a narrative where they are always the author. They are constantly editing reality to serve whatever point they need to make in that exact moment. So if you notice the story keeps changing, trust that noticing. Don't do the work of filling in the blanks or explaining it away for them.
Which brings us to Section 2, testing your boundaries.
Ask yourself this: how do they respond when you give them a really small no? This is probably the most critical early warning sign of all, and it's also the easiest to miss because the no feels so incredibly insignificant. Maybe you ask to change a date night from Thursday to Friday, or maybe you say you aren't quite ready to be exclusive yet, or you just don't want to share your phone's location. These are completely normal, healthy limits.
But notice the stark contrast in the reaction here. Sure, a healthy person might feel a quick flash of disappointment. That's just human. But they adjust without making you feel bad about it. A toxic person, though, they'll have this micro-reaction, a tiny shift in tone, a momentary flash of coldness. They're calculating. They're actively testing to see exactly how much resistance you have, and if they can pull that guilt lever just enough to make you walk back your boundary just to restore the peace.
Here's another really important thing to reflect on. Is there an explanation for everything, and is it absolutely never their fault? Like if you ask about a lost job, is it always because of an impossible boss? If you ask about a falling out, is it entirely the friend's failure? Look, sometimes people are genuinely wronged, but if a person has literally never, in any story they tell, shown honest accountability or admitted they contributed to a problem, well, it means they haven't learned how to look at themselves honestly.
And that brings us to how they actually communicate with you. In the very beginning, they might seem super curious, right? Asking all the perfect questions. But look at the distinction we have here. Are they showing genuine curiosity to understand you, or are they just information gathering to win future conflicts? A toxic person essentially files away your vulnerabilities as ammunition. When a disagreement eventually happens, an emotionally mature person can sit in that discomfort without needing to win.
But a toxic person immediately shifts into defending their position and explaining exactly why you misunderstood them. For them, being understood is survival. Actually understanding you, that's optional.
All right, let's move into section 3, the internal energy check-in.
We're going to shift the focus completely inward for a minute. When things are good with a charming person, you feel electric. But I really want you to ask yourself, how do you feel about yourself when things are slightly off? After a tiny rupture or a disagreement that doesn't quite fully resolve, what's actually happening in your body? Do you feel this low hum of guilt even when you literally can't name what you supposedly did wrong? Do you feel like maybe you pushed too hard or asked for way too much?
This is absolutely crucial to understand. Self-doubt is their emotional fingerprint. If you're constantly feeling this creeping sense of confusion, it's not an accident. It is entirely by design. Toxic people trade in uncertainty. They literally survive off your confusion. They subtly make you the problem, so you stay totally off balance. But here's the good news. Once you see this pattern and label that self-doubt for exactly what it is, their power over you instantly begins to shrink.
Next, let's look at the totally opposite end of the emotional spectrum. How do they handle your wins? When you achieve something you're genuinely really proud of, look closely at their face. Is there real warmth there? Or is there an almost imperceptible dimming? A subtle pivot right back to themselves? Or maybe a compliment that lands strangely, kind of like a comparison? Someone who needs to be the center of gravity in every room literally cannot genuinely celebrate you. Instead, they actually experience your success as a threat to their dominance. A healthy partner, on the other hand, truly roots for you. They celebrate you with genuine, uncomplicated warmth. So if you see that brief little flicker of resentment in their eyes, trust it.
Which leads us to our final part, section 4, reclaiming your self-trust.
If any of this is hitting close to home, please don't panic. Clarity is your absolute best friend right now. Here's a really simple daily check-in practice you can use to safely rebuild trust in your own observations. Step 1. Monitor your energy. Just ask yourself, do I feel expanded or contracted after spending time with this person? Step 2. Observe those micro-reactions to your boundaries, but do it without absorbing the guilt. And step 3. Hold on to what you observe. When reality inevitably shifts, do not do the emotional work of explaining it away for them. Let the contradiction just sit there. Validate your own reality.
This is basically the ultimate contrast. In a toxic dynamic, you're constantly bracing yourself. You're editing your thoughts, you're softening your personality, and you're feeling just a little bit smaller every day. But a healthy dynamic, that makes you feel expanded. It brings out the parts of you that feel the most fully alive. You absolutely do not have to present a curated, careful version of yourself just to be loved. I really want you to let this truth sink in. The right person won't make you wonder if you're too much. The right person will actually make you wish you would stop settling way sooner. You have to be willing to walk away from dynamics that require you to shrink down even when everything looks perfect on paper. And yeah, even when you've already started hoping.
So we're going to wrap up with this final thought for you to reflect on. Are your instincts actually broken, or have they just been overruled by hope? Your rational mind might try to argue with your gut, but your body always knows when it isn't safe. You deserve to be hopeful, yes, but you also deeply deserve to be protected. Trust what you observe, validate your own energy, and remember that a relationship where you can simply breathe and be exactly who you are is entirely possible for you. You've totally got this. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will see you in the next one.